Human life is like a game of dice. The loser who never had any luck before will be reborn into something new. The guy was grabbed by the neck by a terrible monster. He did not expect that he would die so early, without even waiting for help. But sometimes death is nothing more than a kind of liberation. He understood that he would not survive because he could not even take a breath of air. The guy was faced with the choice of choosing the very same reward card from 12 randomly selected cards. He hoped that this card would change his life, otherwise he would forever remain a loser. Finally, after much deliberation, the young man chose a card. A handsome, white-haired young man appeared before him, even though this playing card was the lowest. He may have the worst cards, but he was confident that he would turn this world upside down. But would he have the courage to challenge the world? Player number 1RT2857, Tyler Young, was 25 years old before joining the game and 18 years old after joining the game. 25-year-old Tyler Young has been in the game for half a year and has even synthesized several top-level cards. But his name is still displayed in the system as a lifelong loser. He has almost come to terms with the fact that this is the reward of losers. But even though he is a loser, even the game should try to console him. When he pressed the move button, he didn't even understand what it meant. He received a message that from now on he was an official player. His unique number was 142875, and now he had to choose a card. Although Tyler already had these cards in his pockets, he calmly wanted to choose a reward. Without hesitation, he poked at the first card he came across, only to have the game finally leave him alone. The guy stared at the screen of his smartphone, puzzled. He got the blessing of the black card, but for him it was a new level of humor. Suddenly, a bright beam of light shot out from the screen, blinding him. Tyler couldn't understand what it was and what was happening right now. The system has made its choice. Now the player is sent to a new world and the monster paradise has been randomly chosen. All that was left on the spot was a phone, cracked from falling to the floor, and a bag. The guy had no doubt that he had moved to another world. He thought that he would start cutting everyone left and right without a shadow of fear, and then lick the blood of the monsters whose corpses would litter his path from the tip of his knife. Tyler had a katana in his hand and swung it over himself without a trace of fear. Even though the guy has been a player for a week now, he still hasn't awakened the system. And besides, he only does housework every day. He faced a problem. The heavenly wheel of life was broken. The light of life was slipping away at an incredible speed, 10 times faster than a human's. The remaining period of life was 91 days. The body he received in the game turned out to be a great success. In the Night Academy, he turned out to be the best graduate with excellent marks. He was sorry that the wheel of life was broken. There was complete deception all around. Here he entered the room of his little sister Tina Yang, his only relative in this world. The guy stared in shock at the girl changing clothes, who shouted at this idiot that before entering, "You need to knock." She had the character of a typical teenager, so a book immediately flew into the young man's face. Sitting down at the dining table, eating rice, Tina frowned and said that she was no longer a little girl, so her brother needed to be more careful. Rubbing his bruised cheek, Tyler asked her not to get angry, but rather to eat. Here the Emperor's ring on his finger shook. This ring was an identity card in this world, literally a personal account with letters, information about a person, and so on. It also has a personal space for storing things and access to the internet. Tina's ring also reacted, opening a projection. Bad news was reported today. At approximately 4:30 p.m., an Eye of the Abyss was discovered 310 miles southeast of Square 7D11. There is a suspicion of a monster invasion, so residents of nearby areas were asked to be careful and not leave the area, as well as close doors and windows at night. The worried girl was afraid that they could be close to the epicenter. Tyler rushed his sister away, telling her not to worry. This wasn't the latest news, so the monsters could have left long ago. Besides, their area was well guarded, and they definitely couldn't miss something like this. If I may say so, the D-level district is very small. The population is not even 10,000, and the security level is extremely low. If strong monsters appear and no one goes to eliminate them, then the city will come to an end. Getting up from the table, the girl warned her brother that she had eaten her fill and would go do her homework. Tyler said he would clear the table himself, but Tina advised him to rest, watching the news. The guy learned that the knights were cleaning up the monsters nearby. Fortunately, the level of the Eye of the Abyss was not that high, so he and his sister were safe. Killing monsters might save his life, but his body is too weak. The young man did not want to die by accident, so tomorrow he will go outside the city and kill a couple of monsters left after the invasion. Suddenly, Tina's cry for help was heard, and Tyler jumped up in fright. He rushed to his sister's room, where she was praying for her brother to save her. Having kicked the door down, the guy saw that the monster was climbing through the window, and Tina was sitting nearby, pressed into the closet. The monster slowly made its way into the room with the intention of killing the two. Grabbing the bag for defense, Tyler stood up to protect Tina. The monster that was climbing towards them was a vampire. The vampire is one of the weakest iron rank monsters, but the guy grabbed the girl and ran away from there. Tyler locked her in another room and told her to wait for him here while he took the monster outside, because vampires loved the blood of little girls. So Tina needed to sit quietly and the guy would do the rest. The girl looked at her older brother with wide-open eyes and tears streaming from them. Tyler couldn't let the vampire hurt his sister, because he had no one else in this world. At this time, the monster made its way into the house, destroying everything in its path. Tyler screamed for the bloodsucker to come on him if he could. The vampire immediately chased after him. Turning to face his pursuer, the guy was surprised at how powerful he was. Tina sat in the room without making a sound. She was very worried about her little brother. Tyler grabbed the gun and pointed it at the bastard. The guy instantly fired several bullets into the monster's body. But the shots did not cause any harm to the vampire. Tyler was surprised that he could transform. Vampires have a special ability. They can concentrate blood energy around their body to increase protection and strength. This monster is not an iron rank at all. It is at least bronze. Running away from it, the guy realized that he could die like that. The young man had no choice but to jump out of the window. The monster followed the guy straight through the window. Tyler needed to get him to leave here. The vampire immediately attacked the main character. It was dangerous. But the guy had a feeling that something was wrong. Although he transformed, his vampire power was reduced. While fending off the monster's attacks, Tyler realized that he was seriously injured, so he was attacking weakly. Apparently, this vampire escaped from the Knights after a heated battle. The guy needed to stall for time a little. With such wounds, his opponent wouldn't last long. The monster was about to grab Tyler with its clawed paw, but the young man dodged in time. The main thing for him now was to hold out longer. Still, the vampire managed to hit the guy and he flew straight to the ground. Lying on the ground, Tyler couldn't stall for time any longer. It was the end for him. But still, he couldn't die like that, like a loser. He decided to try to hold out once more. His bullets began to pierce the monster's protective dome. The vampire's defense cracked and the bullets hit his chest. The spider-like vampire fell to the ground with a crash. Wounded, but still alive, ready to strike back. But regeneration failed him, and the monster took on its normal appearance, holding its wounded shoulder. Now here, he has become prey for the young man. Having come very close to the monster, the guy was preparing to deliver the decisive blow. With a victorious smile, he fired the last bullet and the vampire died down. He was glad that it was finally all over and the monster was dead. Then, he received a message on his ring congratulating him on successfully completing the test. Tyler defeated the vampire, so he gets a reward. He defeated the second-level monster and gets a level-up card, and he can choose the reward himself. Then, a small puppy appeared in front of the young man and said that, in addition to the usual ones, he had the opportunity to choose other cards. The little dog pouted and turned away from the guy, muttering that he was actually his assistant and needed to be treated with respect. Turning to Tyler and pointing to the cards, the assistant said that in addition to the gold, the guy also had a special card as a reward for killing a monster. The young man saw his data card. He had no strength, no combat power, a complete loser, just as cruel. And the monster's combat power was level 3 bronze. According to the system's assessment, he was a complete weakling. Tyler couldn't figure out how to judge the value of cards in this world. The assistant replied that white ones are common, green ones are rare, blue ones are legendary, purple and orange ones are divine, and the guy only has loser ones. The main character came up with the idea that he could draw the card himself, because if you drew a monster card, what is the chance that you can draw a rarer one? The assistant asked the lucky man with irony in his voice if it had been a long time since he had looked in the mirror. The boy tearfully agreed that he was a loser with the worst reputation. Sensing someone approaching, the assistant warned Tyler about it. The sound of heels was heard and a girl came out to them. The blonde asked the guy if he killed the monster. The girl introduced herself as Anna Day and said that she had received a call about a danger. It said that a vampire had attacked the place. Tyler agreed that his younger sister Tina had called because they were attacked by a vampire. He was surprised that Anna, the famous silver hunter of the Hunters Association, turned out to be a girl. The girl decided to ask a little differently about whether Tyler killed this monster. The guy replied that he was the one who killed the monster, but he was partially lucky because the vampire was already rotting. Anna didn't understand how he could kill him if this guy's level hadn't even reached iron, and his life wheel was completely broken. Anna moved closer to Tyler. wondering how he killed the monster because she still couldn't believe that he was able to finish it off with just luck. Then the guy remembered his little sister, who was in the house. He immediately rushed headlong towards her, telling Anya to wait a little because he needed to make sure his sister was safe, and then they could continue the conversation. Tina stood near the completely destroyed wall of the house. The girl was very upset because they had to pay for this house for another 32 years. A breathless Tyler, standing behind his sister, called out to her sharply. Tina immediately threw herself into his arms, crying. She babbled that she was scared to death, thinking that her brother had died. The guy tried to calm his crying sister as best he could. Anna had more and more questions for Tyler when she saw that the monster had destroyed half of the house. Turning to Tina, the girl told her that there was nothing to worry about anymore, but her brother had somehow single-handedly killed a third-level bronze-ranked vampire. Tina proudly stated that her brother was the best graduate of the Hunter School, but Tyler was more interested in finding out what Anna wanted to check. The boy's sister asked the stranger who she was and why she had come to their house. The huntress replied that she was a silver hunter and had come to help in response to a call about danger. Tina couldn't believe that she was able to see Anna in person. The girl in turn was scanning the house. Tyler was interested to know what equipment she was using because, apparently, it was gold rank. The girl replied that this equipment is not intended for combat, so it is of great value. It can instantly record the surrounding view, save it, and display it on the screen in 3D format. Now she uses it to recognize the damage to their house. In connection with this, the Hunters Association will pay them appropriate compensation. Tina was shocked by how rich her sister was, because such equipment needed to be fueled by at least a year-old life crystal, while Tyler thought that ordinary iron rank equipment needed several life crystals, so the price of gold compared to it was like heaven and earth. Proud of herself, Anna replied that she had plenty of such life crystals, and since Tina called her sister, the girl threw her a 3-year-old life crystal as a gift, for which she thanked Anna. The guy realized that, apparently, the hunter was not so simple. Since the vampire was dead, there was probably no point for Anya to delve into this matter. But she was still worried about something, and Tyler immediately asked her to tell him what exactly she needed to check. The girl kept thinking that it would be difficult even for her to fight a third-level bronze-ranked vampire, and the guy also had a broken life wheel, plus he wasn't even an iron-ranked vampire. Anna believed that Tyler had some excellent equipment, so if he wanted it, she could buy it for a high price. The guy replied that the girl had already seen what had happened to his house, and today was the first time he had seen gold-rank equipment, and it was just in Anna's hands. Patting Tyler on the shoulder, the huntress said that in that case she had underestimated the guy. She was sorry that his life wheel was broken. However, if he could somehow restore it, she was sure that the guy would become a great hunter. But unfortunately for Tyler, he didn't have much time left. As she was leaving, the girl dropped that the damage assessment for the house had been completed, and that tomorrow morning someone from the organization would come here to do the repairs, and they would be provided with free housing. Turning around, Anna told the guy not to die and then maybe they would see each other again. Tina asked her brother where they would sleep tonight, to which Tyler promised to think of something. The girl suggested just sleeping for now, and everything would be fine tomorrow. Stroking his sister's head, who instantly fell asleep, the guy thought that she was still a child after all, since she fell asleep so quickly. As it turns out, being a responsible brother isn't that easy. Unnoticed by Tyler, Lucky appeared next to him, who said that his sister was just a cutie, but his brother was useless. The guy was scared by the appearance of the assistant, to which he calmed the guy down, saying that no one else could see him except the main character. The young man breathed a sigh of relief because no one else could see his assistant. But Lucky was right about him being too weak to protect his sister, so Tyler wanted to pull out another card. Lucky didn't expect the guy to want to do it right now, but Tyler was sure. 12 cards appeared in front of him, one of which would become his reward. Finally, Tyler selected one of the cards and clicked on it. The system congratulated the guy on receiving the mission card. He needs to become a novice hunter. As a reward, he will receive a correction card. But if the guy does not complete the task within the specified time, he will lose the blessing forever. The young man was surprised because he had not heard before that the blessing can be lost. Realizing the whole situation, he shouted to Lucky that for this, he must be at least an iron rank to participate in the selection of rookie hunters. The assistant warned him that the task had already begun, and all the necessary information was posted on the back of the card. Crying from despair, the guy thought that he would probably remain a loser for the rest of his life. But, in any case, whatever the purpose of the corrective card, he must definitely complete this task. Otherwise, the loss of the blessing will be the end for him. In the morning, Tina shouted to her brother that she was running away to school. Tyler shouted after her that the news said that the area closest to them had been cleared of monsters, but the girl still needed to be careful and not get lost, and that workers would be arriving today to repair the house, and as soon as they finished, he would write to his sister. The girl was late for school again, chewing a sandwich on the way. As Tyler walked his little sister home, he decided he needed to get some things done. The guy immediately called Lucky, who had been licking himself before. Tyler ran up to his assistant, grabbing him. Lucky was outraged that the guy was stopping him from licking himself, but the young man had more urgent matters. He was interested in how to finish this task on the mission card. The puppy boredly replied that before talking about participation, he needed to register, which Tyler would most likely fail, since the minimum requirement for participation was Iron rank, so it seemed like fate had played a cruel joke on him. Hearing this, the guy angrily warned that they would probably have dog stew for lunch today. Lucky didn't like this idea at all, so he said more gently that the guy needed to come up with a way to bypass registration, otherwise he would simply not be allowed in. It was obvious to Tyler that it was impossible to reach Iron rank in such a short time, but he still needed to participate in the Rookie Hunter exam. But since he got the level up card, he can disguise himself as a tamer to participate in the selection process. Lucky thought this was a good idea because tamers are very rare at this time, so they are highly valued. So this idea is really good. Tyler felt that a level 3 bronze-ranked vampire should be more than enough to pass the novice hunter exam. However, his weakness was too obvious. If one used a weapon coated with poison that caused the vampire's body to actively decompose, he would be at a great disadvantage during combat. Lucky realized that the guy was planning to use the level up card. The protagonist realized that using a level up card on an Iron rank monster was wasteful, but completing the quest was more important now. But he didn't know how to summon the monster, to which Lucky replied that he just needed to imagine the summon card, and it would appear, and then crush it, and then he would be able to summon it. Tyler clarified whether the cards were visible to others or not. Lucky replied that only the guy, the monster himself, and the assistant could see the cards, while the rest were unable to see them, meaning Tyler didn't have to worry about his ability being revealed. He took the vampire card in his hand, about to activate it, and then he crushed her, and a young dark-haired guy appeared behind his back. Tyler was surprised that a vampire could look so amazing. Lucky said that the protagonist can choose one of the summoner skills right now if he wants. Tyler was ready to use the card right away. The assistant warned that the level up card can only be used once, but it is not advisable to use it on a vampire. But since the guy was ready for this, Lucky had no choice but to raise the vampire level to advanced. But he still felt sorry to use this card on some vampire. The transformation was so bright that Tyler closed his eyes. When the process was completed, a handsome white-haired man appeared before them. With such a shock of silver hair, Tyler was ready to name him Kaneki, because this name would suit him perfectly. But it violates copyright, so the guy decided to call him Bai. The protagonist transformed the handsome man back into a card. Only Bai turned out to be a 3rd-level Iron rank. Tyler asked Lucky why the vampire's rank had dropped. The assistant replied that the vampire was originally a level 3 bronze rank, but because the guy was weak, the combat power he could use was only that of a level 3 Iron rank. But it is rare to see a master lower the rank of a summoned monster due to his inexperience. Tyler warned Lucky that if he was so rude, he would never make friends. The assistant replied that he did not need them. Then there was a loud knock on the door and they asked to open it. Opening the front door, Tyler was stunned to see 2 thugs who looked like debt collectors. Fearing the menacing appearance of these people, the guy thought that they were members of the mafia, murderers, or vampires who decided to take revenge. Upon learning the boy's name, the thug immediately became kind and sweet, saying that they had received an order for restoration and had come to repair the house. Tyler immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Another person warned that if the guy had any wishes, he could let them know and they would do everything possible. The repairs would be finished in 5 days, and a temporary place of residence had already been prepared for them during this time. As Tyler accepted the pass from the agent, he was surprised that they would be staying in a high-class, well-known hotel. The association gives huge subsidies to those affected by the monster attacks. As they approached the hotel, Tina said that it was close to her school, and she had always dreamed of going inside, while Tyler couldn't even imagine that they would ever be able to visit such a luxurious place. The doorman greeted the guests warmly, inviting them inside. The guy suggested that his sister first eat and then rest in their room. Once inside, Tina said that she was no longer hungry. Tyler warned his sister that the food and room were provided free of charge. The girl was furious that her brother began to eat without her. Tina began to devour the food with gusto, although a few minutes ago she was not hungry. The guy was a little alarmed by how quiet it had become around him, and people look very scared about something. And all because a really scary man walked into the restaurant. Tina pointed her finger at him, but Tyler scolded her not to point her finger at him or even look at him. The guy noticed that the man was looking at both of them with a painfully intent gaze. Stretching, Tina announced that she was finally full. Once she had eaten her fill, Tyler grabbed her hand and dragged her into their room without even trying dessert, which made the girl unhappy. But the aura around this man did not give the main character any peace. If he could not defeat him, then it was better to hide as soon as possible. The big guy stood up after them without even finishing his food. Tina said that their room should be ahead. She was delighted by the fluffy carpet that made you walk like you were on clouds. But Tyler didn't pay attention to her, caring only about the thug who was chasing them. Even if he loses, he needs to protect his sister by any means necessary. While the guy was thinking about this, they came to the right room. Tyler turned sharply to the man and asked why he was following them. The brute replied that his room was opposite theirs, and the guy sheepishly apologized to him. Entering the room, Tina began to examine it. She was shocked by how big it was. Besides, there were 2 more rooms. Tyler could not fully enjoy their temporary residence because he could not catch his breath from fear. Plopping down on the sofa, the girl said that there were too many people in this hotel, and even if he was bad, he still couldn't do anything to them. The guy agreed with his sister, but apparently he was acting like that because he was tired. So he warned the girl to take a shower, do her homework, and go to bed. But Tina didn't agree with such a schedule, after all. It's not always possible to live in such a luxurious place. It was already past midnight when the girl finally fell asleep. Looking into his sister's room, the guy smiled and thought that too much had happened in these 2 days. There was a lot of information on the internet involving their elite hunter benefactor, and Tyler hoped he could learn something useful from watching it. Watching the video, the guy realized that Anna was skilled as expected. She was very strong. It was not for nothing that she was called a genius among silver hunters. It was then that Tyler noticed a sound coming from the next room. It's midnight, and this guy decided to go for a walk. Tyler realized that he was definitely not mistaken. It was that big guy who was now heading somewhere. But what is he going to do at this time anyway? Having moved a decent distance, the man took out his sword and began to train. Watching him from the window, Tyler noticed that his skills were very good, which was exactly what he was missing right now. There are 18 sword styles in total. If the guy continues to observe, he will definitely be able to remember his movements. Still, staying at this hotel was worth it. Early in the morning, a bird knocked on the window and brought a package. These birds are called thousand-word bird. They are low-ranking monsters that can speak human language, and they specialize in delivering various items, as they have a storage facility in subspace. Peeking out of the bathroom, Tina wondered what her brother had ordered. Tyler warned his sister that she should hurry up and get dressed, or she would be late for school again. Tina didn't calm down, asking her brother what exactly he ordered. The guy replied that he was preparing for the hunter exam, and the girl needed to go get ready instead of staring. The gear cost almost all of the boy's savings, but he hoped it would do some good. The kit included armor-piercing bullets. Although there were only 10 of them, they would be very useful in the future. Having unpacked all the items, Tyler decided to move on to the most important thing. He pulled out a black steel combat longsword, the best he could afford. He remembered the thug's 18th style well, so he decided to try it out. Then he lunged, turned and struck, dashed and cut. A notification came from the system, congratulating Tyler on receiving the first fragment of the Great Devastation skill. Turning to Lucky, Perrin asked what he should do with it. The assistant replied that everything was very simple. He needed to collect all the fragments to transform them into one complete skill. In anticipation, Tyler said that it was easy. He just needed to swing the sword to get the skill. But it turns out that it is not so simple. Lucky explained that his success rate was a maximum of 80% of the original's accuracy, and the guy would be able to get a fragment if he repeated the technique perfectly. Only after reaching 100% accuracy could he continue to receive skill fragments. The main character didn't think that he needed to swing a sword exactly like that guy with a scar. The assistant replied that acquiring skills is not that easy. Determined to succeed, Tyler was determined to continue training and get all the fragments. Lucky just wished him luck and went back to sleep. 9 hours later, the guy was lying on the floor from fatigue. He was only able to collect 20% of the fragments, but he did not have the strength to continue training. From behind the door came the voice of Tina, who had returned from school. The girl entered the room with a man, introducing him as the founder of the hotel, Mr. Brian. He said that he wanted to say hello to Tyler, but Tina was wondering why her brother was sleeping on the floor. Then, the man greeted the guy warmly. He was glad that they stayed in his hotel. But Brian had been too busy lately, so he greeted guests so coolly the young man did not see anything wrong with this, so he invited the gentleman inside. Handing over a soothing tea that he had prepared especially for the guest, the man called the guy very hardworking. Tyler thanked him and said that this hotel looks just wonderful and the service here is top-notch. Mr. Briand sheepishly replied that if the client was happy, it was an honor for him. And as he was about to leave, he said that Tyler could call him at any time if they needed anything. Tina noticed that being the founder of this hotel, the gentleman is very humble and kind. Tyler appreciated his excellent tea. The girl almost forgot to give her brother the reward from the Monster Hunters Association for killing the monster. Tyler had killed a bronze-rank vampire and was wondering what kind of reward they had decided to give him. He was surprised that the suitcase could only be opened with a fingerprint. Tyler excitedly took out the Dark Eagle 33, a new mechanical weapon made of dark steel from the Desert Eagle Company. It not only has a pistol mode, but also a sniper rifle mode. It was currently the best dark steel mechanical weapon on the market and was probably worth more than most bronze-rank equipment. Watching her brother's excitement, Tina noticed that the Hunter Association was very generous. Only Tyler remembered that activating such a weapon requires a lot of energy, so he can only use it after reaching the iron rank. He needs to hurry and collect all the fragments of the Great Devastation skill. Tina didn't expect her brother to decide to take part in the Hunter exam. She knew that Tyler was strong, but she was still very worried. Tyler asked his sister not to worry. He would keep his word and not leave her. The girl willingly believed him. Then the guy shouted at Tina to stop sitting around and go do her homework. When the girl left, Tyler decided to continue training because after the master's tea, he was well rested. The guy not only became calm, but his concentration also increased. He thought that this was because his skill was also growing. Time after time, the young man received new fragments of the skill. He had this strange feeling, like he couldn't stop training. In the morning, Tina was shocked that her brother had not slept all night. But the chance of getting fragments was increasing, so he had to continue. The boy continued training without even noticing that his little sister had gone to school. Finally, the system congratulated him on obtaining 300 fragments of the Great Devastation skill. Now Tyler can transform them into the rare Great Devastation skill. The guy really wanted to get this skill, so without hesitation he agreed to transform the fragments. The protagonist only received the first part of the Great Devastation skill. This card turned out to be rare, and the skill rank is gold. This skill is classified as special, so it has no level limit. The difficulty will change according to the user's strength. Lucky appeared out of nowhere and explained that this skill has two parts, and if you combine them, you get an epic rank card. But the second part was lost a long time ago, and even he doesn't know its location. Tyler hoped that the guy with the scar wouldn't get mad when he found out that he copied his skill, even though it looked like he was just showing off his technique on purpose. Anyway, the guy wanted to thank him and also find out about the second part of the skill. The main character immediately went to his room and pressed the call button. Opening the door slightly, the man asked what he wanted. Bowing low, the boy thanked him for teaching him sword skills for 3 whole days. The man replied that he had not taught him. If Tyler himself was attentive and diligent, then he had learned it himself. But how much he understood everything was his problem. But even if that was the case, the guy was still grateful to him. But before he could finish speaking, the thug closed the door right in front of his nose. Tyler decided to ask about the second part after the exam. When Tina returned from school, the guy told her that they had to go home tomorrow because he had received a letter during the night and the girl was upset. She was so used to the luxurious living that she didn't want to go back home. Tyler promised her that in the future they would live in a house much better than this one, the girl agreed, but she was still happy with what she could be with her brother. The guy advised her to go to bed early because they had a hard day ahead of them tomorrow. At this time, the thug did not understand what the gentleman saw in that guy. He was just lucky to kill the vampire. He is at the lowest stage, and his wheel of life is completely broken. At best, he has 2 months left. Turning to young Evans, Mr. Briand asked him if he had ever been wrong about people. Yang replied that the gentleman was certainly not mistaken, but his personality was special, and he could not interfere in the affairs of this world. And that was probably why the gentleman ordered him to train this boy. Brian knew the limits of his powers, but Yang had also talked to this guy and was interested in what Evans thought about him. The man replied that he was talented, but compared to Anna, he could not be called a genius. In that case, Brian decided to check with Young how long it took him to master the first part of the Great Desolation. The man replied that this skill may look simple, but it contains a vast ocean of Blade Dao essence, and he had practiced 18 hours a day for 103 days to fully master it. Brian said that it took him 103 days for the Blade Genius to learn the first part of the skill, But as for how long it would take that guy, Yang guessed that it would take him 2 to 3 years. The gentleman silently showed 3 fingers. Yang thought that the gentleman meant more than 3 years, but Brian replied that Tyler had already learned this skill in just 3 days. The man couldn't believe it, but the gentleman said that nothing was impossible, and now they needed to get ready and go. Yang meekly agreed with his master and followed. The next day, Tyler and Tina left the hotel and headed to their renovated home. But when they were already there, they could not hide the surprise on their faces. Their house had been completely rebuilt, which made them think they had mixed up the house number. But, as it turned out, they definitely had the right number because one of the association's people met them at the door. Turning to the man, Tyler said that the house was slightly damaged and only needed to repair the wall, and they built a new one. The man, smiling radiantly, replied that these guys were friends of Mrs. Anna, so they gave it their all. At first, Tina didn't understand who he was talking about, but then she realized that he was talking about her little sister Anya. The man agreed with her, the lady helped them a little with the restoration order, and when the management saw it, they demanded that everything be done properly. And all because her father is one of the 3 vice leaders of the 7th District branch of the association, and her mother is the 7th District representative of the Federation. As he left, the man wished them a great day and hoped they would meet again. But Tyler did not share his joy because he did not want the monsters to destroy his house again. But Tina noticed that they decided to please because they thought Tyler was Anna's friend. Entering the house, Tina began to enthusiastically examine the house, and the guy decided to focus on something more important, since the house was renovated. And all because in 3 days the exam for novice hunters will begin. 3 days later, the boy was already flying on a griffin, a low-ranking monster that specialized in transporting people between regions. Tyler even found the flight very exciting. In just 2 hours, he reached code area 7C87. The speed of the griffins truly lives up to their reputation. Big cities are so different, there are so many people, that Tyler didn't know where to go first. Before leaving, the guy gave all his savings to Tina. It should be enough for her while he was gone. Then some guy called out to him with the intention of going to the exam together. Hugging Tyler, the guy introduced himself as Kevin Joy. He didn't expect that there would be a daredevil who would decide to take the exam, even without reaching the iron rank. The main character introduced himself in response, but he still felt uneasy about his excessive talkativeness. Having reached the branch of the Hunters Association, Kevin reported that this stronghold is considered average. Ordinary people leave missions here, and the hunters later take them. If they follow the crowd now, they will definitely come to the right place. Tyler noted that his new friend knew a lot about the association, to which Kevin replied that he always dreamed of being a hunter, so he studied everything related to this craft. Before leaving for the Citadel, they were met by a pretty girl who informed them that the briefing would start soon, so she should take them inside. Entering the room, the guys were surprised that there were so many people there and they all came for the exam. Tyler asked Kevin what the briefing was for, and he replied that before the exam began, professionals would tell them how it would go. Immediately, a girl came out to the examinees and shouted for everyone to close their bread slicers. She introduced herself as Frida Kern and said that she would be their examiner. From that moment, the entrance to the hall would be closed, and those who were late would be disqualified. As Kevin expected, it was the demoness Frida. To begin with, the girl decided to tell the rules. If someone were to speak in parallel with her, they would have only themselves to blame for the consequences. This time the exam will be held 330 kilometers away from the 7C87 Citadel. The area is the Golden Flame Desert. They will need to cross the desert in 15 days and reach the 7D121 Citadel, which is 1,500 kilometers away from the landing site. The girl added that it is forbidden to bring any water or food. They can only be obtained in the desert itself. Kevin noticed that Tyler was not writing down the location of water sources, but the location of monsters. The guy replied that he was afraid of dying prematurely, so he would simply avoid them. Pointing to the map, Frida showed a safe route, but the children will have to overcome the snowy mountain called the Ridge of the Goddess on their own. They can use any tools, but if at the end of the exam they do not reach the Citadel, they will be disqualified. The examinees didn't think that they would have to climb the mountain with their bare hands, but Kevin was staring at the demoness relic, and since Tyler didn't know what it was, Kevin explained that the relic was an extremely rare item of gold rank or higher, and the only way to obtain them was by killing a monster of superior rank or higher. Before the exam began, Frida warned that her assistants would now check everyone's equipment. It was not allowed to take equipment above the iron rank. Poisons and other illegal items were also prohibited. Everyone had a call button for help. After using it, a rescue team would come for the person, and he himself would be disqualified. When Tyler was going to be tested, Frida stopped him abruptly. The guy thought that she wanted to cancel his participation because he did not reach the iron rank. But the girl just looked at the guy and smirked. But then she told him to move on. And the main character realized that she was laughing at him because he wouldn't last long. But her spatial relic was truly amazing to him. And not only for him, Kevin was delighted with her relic because they are rare and much more valuable than weapons of the same rank. Frida reported that they checked all their things and functions like the Empire Ring, which gives access to the network. Any types of communication, as well as navigation and other maps will be disabled. Only inventory will be available. Other participants were despondent because if even the cards were unavailable, it would be the end of them all, and the percentage of those who passed this year would likely be the lowest ever. Frida officially announced that the exam for the novice hunter has begun. Participants pushed forward to take control of the water areas. Kevin said goodbye to Tyler and went ahead to explore the area. The main character had no choice but to drag behind, because his strength did not allow him to go faster. At his speed, he can cover 40 kilometers per day, but he only has 15 days, which means his limit is half the way. One of the examiner's assistants said that this guy wasn't even an iron rank, but he still decided to take the exam, and his abilities were below average. Frida could bet that out of 15 days he would last only 3. Lucky kept complaining that Tyler wouldn't be able to cover 1,500 kilometers in a year. The guy understood that he was not like the other participants. If he could run like them, then he would need only half a day. Lucky said that if you subtract 2 days for climbing the mountain, then the main character needs to walk about 100 kilometers a day. And so Tyler cannot rely only on himself, but the assistant will not be able to help him in any way because the system has only an auxiliary function. The guy said that he just needed information, and he could handle the rest on his own, so he asked Lucky to give him information about the Shadu tribe's sand mountains. The system reported that the sand ogres are iron-ranked, live in groups, have low intelligence but high attack power. Lucky realized that Tyler wanted to go off the safe path to find them. The guy wanted to collect fragments to convert them into a summoning card, and it would be possible to use the ogre as a mount. The assistant did not like this idea because the main character cannot cope with an entire tribe. But Tyler didn't say he would attack the ogres alone. By nightfall, the protagonist finally found the sand ogre camp. One of the monsters slept quietly in his tent, not even suspecting the imminent attack. But then a small stone flew into his forehead, which immediately woke the ogre up. Tyler was standing nearby waving at him. The ogre, approaching, immediately struck with his club, but the guy instantly dodged, covering his nose from the terrible stench. Running away from the monster, the main character shouted to him that if he wanted to feast on fresh human flesh, he should follow him. Having caught up with the guy, the ogre was about to strike him again with his club. But before he could do this, both heads were cut off. All this time, Bai, whom Tyler was counting on, was waiting for the monster. The protagonist thought that Bai was super strong. Lucky said that for a 3rd iron rank vampire with copper rank combat capability, a 1st iron rank monster would be a piece of cake. Since Bai was so strong, Tyler suggested not to risk their lives by luring the monsters one by one, but to rush in and kill them all. Here the main character received a system notification about receiving prana. Tyler didn't understand what was happening, but his life wheel suddenly lit up. Lucky forgot to warn that the monsters summoned by Tyler will help him restore the Wheel of Life. When one monster kills another, it receives its life force. Half is transferred to the main character, and since Bai's Wheel of Life is full, all the prana is transferred to the owner. Tyler was thrilled that his wheel had gone from 3 sections to 28. Not only would he not slowly die, but he would also have a chance to break through to the iron rank. With his sword at the ready, the young man called Bai to hunt ogres. The two of them immediately began killing the monsters one after another, Bai with his bare hands and Tyler with the help of great devastation. With each ogre killed, the main character received system notifications about receiving fragments of the Sand Ogre cards. Lucky warned that in order to break through to the iron rank, 152 sections of the life wheel must be filled with prana. The white sections are already filled, only the gray ones remain. If Tyler uses additional life force, he will be able to activate and fill them too. The guy thought that to activate one gray section, he would need as much prana as needed for 10 years of life, or 9 white sections. In the past, he would not have thought about such a thing, but now he had a real chance. While dealing with the monsters, Tyler shouted at Bayou to kill them all. Suddenly, a loud, angry roar came from somewhere, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. Tyler didn't know if anyone else was still alive, but Lucky said that the guy seemed to be in big trouble. The exam participants, who had set up camp nearby, also heard the roar. They realized that it belonged to the Shatu tribe's sand ogre, but it was screaming as if it had gone into berserk mode, even though it was only copper ranked. One of the guys guessed that the only ones who would dare to attack them were the giant saber-toothed wolves, so it would probably be a bloodbath today. Then someone's huge paw burst out from under the ground. Tyler froze in place in shock, all because the height of this monster was at least 10 meters. Lucky only wished him luck, since the guy himself provoked the wrath of this big guy by killing so many ogres. More precisely, he aroused the wrath of the head of the Shatu tribe of copper rank. Bai and Tyler immediately began attacking the ogre from different sides. The protagonist realized that this monster's skin was too thick. He also has too much health and bad strength. If things continue like this, the main character will definitely die. Therefore, we need to attack his weak points. This is the only way he can win. Approaching the monster from the front, Tyler ordered Bai to attack it from behind. The guy fired bullets at the ogre, but he blocked them with one hand. Bai maneuvered with great speed next to the monster, striking it and simultaneously dodging it. Tyler yelled at the vampire to finish off the ogre, but ignoring Baya, the ogre rushed towards the guy. The main character didn't think that the monster would try to attack him, but the ogre didn't have a chance because he himself fell into the guy's trap. When the monster approached its maximum distance, Tyler fired several bullets at it. These were iron-grade explosive rounds, so they hit the target instantly. Lucky, who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, was jubilant with joy. The young man was outraged that the assistant had first run away with his tail between his legs, but now had suddenly become bolder. Lucky promised that since he couldn't help, he would try not to be a burden. Here, Tyler received a system notification about receiving a rare monster card. Sand Ogre X1. Since the guy killed someone who is higher in rank than him, then the promotion card is cancelled for him. The main character was surprised that he, a loser, was given a whole map. Lucky was sorry that Bai didn't kill the monster. That way he could have gotten a lot of prana. Looking at the card, Tyler wasn't surprised that Bai couldn't kill this ogre. Not only did they have the same rarity, but the ogre also had a cool passive skill that increased stats. Last time the guy absorbed Bai's skill Blood Art. Now he wants to choose Giant's Endurance. Lucky thought it was a good choice. And how else is Tyler going to run away from everyone like a coward? After exterminating the Shatu tribe, the protagonist received enough map fragments. Now he has 3 monsters to summon, and he also received a new skill, Entry Rank Giant's Endurance. With a dissatisfied face, the assistant said that no matter how many cards Tyler collects, he still won't be able to summon more than 1 monster, and in general, this should be discussed when the guy becomes stronger. The young man praised Bai for his good work and then sent him off to rest. Having immediately summoned the ogre, Tyler was delighted by his huge and strong appearance and therefore named him Tyrant, although Lucky considered this name to be shitty. Now the guy had a 3-star iron-ranked Tyrant Shatu. Lucky knew that Tyler was going to follow through with his plan and use the ogre to get across the desert. But the young man thought that using a rare map to ride was a waste, so he had another idea. Having returned Tyrant back, the guy said that it was not in vain that he and Bai had previously slaughtered the entire Shatu tribe. So a regular ogre would do just fine, and Tyrant and Bai would be his trump cards for the right moment. As Lucky expected, that coward is coming up with cunning plans again. The assistant warned that if the main character has monster cards of the same type, then the rarer card can absorb the worse one and get an improvement of a random skill. The guy suggested that he could give this monster to Tyrant to eat and improve one of the skills, to which Lucky gave a positive answer. But Tyler didn't want to rush. He still needed to catch up with the others, so for now he would use it for protection and hunting. And after the exam was over, he would feed it to Tyrant. Lucky didn't even imagine that he would think it through so far. Without this ogre, Tyler certainly wouldn't have been able to get this far. But then the monster caught his foot on a chain stretched low from the ground, and the guy immediately flew off the ogre. He realized that he was being attacked, but he didn't know who dared to do it. Then a voice rang out, which decided that the guy wasn't afraid of death, since he was speaking so rudely. There were 3 guys standing in front of him who knew who Tyler was, and that he hadn't even reached the iron rank, but had decided to take the hunter exam. This is not the first time the main character sees this impudent guy, and he already thought that he was some kind of monster. The blonde was furious that he was called a monster, but then the second guy entered the conversation, who introduced himself as Riley Wallace, and his cousin, Subaru Lewis. He apologized for the fact that Tyler fell into their trap, and also asked not to worry because they had no evil intentions. This kid is a leader and he talks nicely, but the main character sees right through them. Riley said with a smile that the difficulty of this exam is not a joke, And although Tyler's monster is strong, he himself is very weak. Besides, this ogre will not be able to climb the mountain, so he suggested that the guy team up and get to the mountain together, and there they will help him. The protagonist thanked them for the invitation, but he is more comfortable alone because he does not like to work in a team. Riley asked him to think it over carefully, but Tyler had already seen his true face. Losing his patience, Subaru shouted that they didn't care about him. If they didn't need a monster to move quickly, then no one would even pay attention to the guy. Besides, Tyler, even though he is a tamer, will not just get away with insulting the noble Wallace family. The young man realized that they weren't going to back down so easily. Such families had gold-ranked hunters, so the Federation recognized them as a noble family. So it was no wonder that this boy was so arrogant. Riley said they weren't forcing him, but the way Tyler was treating them was a little annoying, so he was going to have to teach him a lesson. Subaru shouted that freaks like Tyler needed to have their heads taught how to behave properly. Then the whole group attacked the ogre, but he suddenly disappeared right in front of their noses. Without wasting any time, they decided to kill the tamer first. With a poisonous grin, Tyler asked if they were strong enough for this, and Bai immediately covered him with his body. The vampire immediately attacked Subaru, causing him to fly back. Seeing that Subaru was injured, the others rushed to his aid. The protagonist instantly canceled the summoning of Baya, and the next second he summoned Tyrant. The attackers couldn't believe that this guy had 3 monsters. The Tyrant immediately scattered all the people to the sides. Subaru, who was barely moving, called Tyler a scumbag and shouted that he didn't dare do that. Riley couldn't comprehend that a person who hadn't reached the iron rank could summon 3 monsters. Looking menacingly at the boys, Tyler reminded them that they wanted to teach him a lesson, but now they suddenly changed their minds. While holding back Tyrant's blows with his shield, Riley suggested that the protagonist calm down and talk. His shield was already all cracked, and to damage an iron rank weapon so easily, this monster must be copper ranked. Tyler stopped the ogre from striking further, offering him to listen to what they had to say. Riley apologized to the guy for such a mistake, but Subaru shouted at him that there was no point in being afraid of Tyler. If he killed them, he would be suspended from the exam. He would be blacklisted, and he would never be able to pass the exam again, and killing a member of a noble family is a serious crime in the Federation. Turning to his brother, Riley yelled at him to shut his mouth. Coming closer to Tyler, he said that the Wallace family recognizes strong people, so he is ready to make everyone apologize to him, compensate for the losses, and become a friend of the protagonist, and also, he will be able to take any piece of equipment from his inventory. But the young man replied that he does not need compensation from Riley. He just needs all the items in Subaru's inventory to cover the moral damage caused by his arrogance. Subaru yelled that a tamer is useless without their monster, so Tyler needs to stop looking down on them. Protecting his master, Tyrant was ready to attack his opponents at any second. Taking out his pistol, the protagonist said that he himself was capable of fighting back against Subaru. A bullet was immediately fired into the guy's shoulder, but it passed tangentially, touching only the clothes and the top layer of skin. But still trembling with fear, Subaru asked Riley for help, but his brother only turned away from him. Tyler walked up close to the guy lying on the ground and said he was giving him 3 seconds to say the last words in this life. Lying under the gun pointed at him, Subaru still believed that he would not dare to kill him. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble. Tyler said he didn't care at all about losing his qualifications to become a hunter. Although he doesn't even have an iron rank, he is able to summon very strong monsters, especially since he has 3 of them. Even if Tyler doesn't become a hunter, any other organization will hire him. Besides, the association won't let him go so easily. Even if he kills not only Subaru, but also the young master, he will still have a chance to leave without anyone knowing anything. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Subaru began to beg for mercy. I didn't react to the guy's words. Tyler was about to pull the trigger. Then Riley shouted that the main character could ask for whatever he wanted, but let him spare his brother, and the young master would do everything possible to please him. Subaru kneeled down and said that he had 4 pieces of iron equipment. He was willing to give everything and the items in his inventory. Tyler could take whatever he wanted. The main character just wanted to pull the trigger. But this time he felt it was worth treating the young gentleman with respect. In fact, killing Subaru would have caused a lot of trouble. But these nobles are too annoying. But now the Wallace family will not touch him, and will even be in debt. Here the figure of a man slowly approached them, asking for help. The shape looked all too familiar to Tyler. Kevin didn't expect the main character to be a tamer. If it weren't for him, he would have already been buried under that sand. Tyler thought Kevin was with the leading group, so he didn't understand how he could have gone astray. Kevin said that when they were setting up the tent and preparing for the night, they were attacked by ogres, and because of this, everyone ran away in all directions. The guy was grateful to Tyler for saving him. Now he became his benefactor. Handing the main character a piece of meat, Kevin explained that it was an armored boar that his team had caught. Tyler didn't even know that he could cook. With sparkling eyes, Kevin said his life's goal was to become a gourmet hunter. He wants to travel around the world in search of the best ingredients to create the most delicious dish. Kevin began to explain that the meat of an armored boar is fatty and juicy, and becomes even tastier if cooked on the grill. The meat of saber-toothed wolves is also simply amazing. Different areas are home to different monsters, for which there are different cooking methods. Tyler thought that Kevin was a good person and he was good at cooking, so it would be useful to have him around, but he was very loud. Kevin lost his tent, and Tyler's tent was with him, so he wanted to sleep together, as they say, in a crowd, but not in a fence. The main character poked his head out of the tent and said that he was used to sleeping alone, so he wouldn't be able to fall asleep if they were in the tent together. Lying down by the fire, Kevin muttered pitifully that he was just too fat, which made Tyler uncomfortable being around him. The protagonist looked at Tyrant and decided to leave him to guard them just in case. Late that night, Kevin slept carefree on the sand near the dying fire. Tyler too slept peacefully, dissolving into his dreams. But then he suddenly opened his eyes, sensing something was wrong. Through the tent, he saw that Tyrant was standing in battle gear. Having jumped out of the tent, the guy could not understand what had happened and where the danger was. But then his face became covered in sweat. For them, everything was very, very bad. He began to wake up Kevin, who was sleeping and thinking that it was already morning and time to eat. Tyler screamed at him to get up quickly because they needed to get out of there quickly. Kevin didn't understand why they should run, because Tyrant was very strong and could protect them if necessary. Tyler told him to look up at the sky where a flock of Yin Crows was flying straight towards them, and it would definitely be the end of them. Having climbed onto Tyrant, they rushed away from the crows, Kevin screaming at the top of his voice that it was too early for him to die. Tyler yelled at him to stop yelling. He was only getting attention. Yin Crows belong to the ghost family and do not have a physical body. They can pass through objects, which means they have nowhere to hide. The protagonist saw the news about how a whole squad of hunters were killed by them. The corpses did not have any damage, but their souls were sucked out so they looked like mummies. Kevin said that even gold-ranked hunters prefer to avoid flocks of these crows. At this point, Kevin fell off the ogre and flew to the ground. But the tyrant immediately grabbed him with his hand, preventing him from falling. Tyler thought that sooner or later they would be caught. The only chance to survive was to request help by pressing the button. But then they would be disqualified, and if he failed the exam, he would lose his system, which meant he would lose everything. So he couldn't give up so easily, even if he died. But is there any way to survive an attack by Yin Crows? Not even a day passed before many immediately gave up. Frida thought that the current students were so weak that if some talent did not emerge among them, everyone would laugh at her. Then she received a system notification. The girl was irritated by the fact that she was not allowed to rest even at night. She was taken aback by the speed at which he moved. Even a copper rank wouldn't be able to move that fast in the desert. Teleporting to the desert, Frida thought that this idiot was eaten by one of the monsters, and the signal was coming from there. But then an ogre approached the girl, from whose shoulder Tyler shouted for the examiner to get them out of there. Tyler pounced on the girl from above and pushed her back towards the portal. The guy completely forgot about the tyrant, who would not be able to fit through the small door. So he immediately called the monster back. Frida demanded that the guy who was sitting on top get off her. Later, Tyler explained the whole situation, that they were being chased by a flock of Yin Crows for half an hour. If it weren't for that, he wouldn't have sent the request. Frida said that such speed was abnormal for a 3-star ogre, so she asked the guy if he was mutated. Tyler thought that Tyrant was a naturally mutated monster. When he received his card, it was already rare. Since the examiner understood everything, there was no point in hiding it. Frida said that she would inform the higher-ups about the crows, so they would finish dealing with them by morning. Now Tyler can only hope that he will not be disqualified, and he will be able to complete the mission as soon as possible. After all, the Yin Ravens are a serious reason. Otherwise, he will lose his system, and the Wheel of Life will return to its original form, which means inevitable death. Frida said that after the crows were dealt with, she would send them back to continue the exam. The guy only agreed with her. Tyler began to justify himself by saying that he hadn't actually used the button. The communicator was broken from the start, and he had nothing to do with it. The girl thought the guy was smart and told him to take the pig with him and find a place to spend the night. When the situation with the Yin Crows was resolved, they would continue the exam. Lost in his thoughts, the guy didn't immediately realize that they wouldn't be disqualified. Frida asked if he wanted them to be disqualified. Tyler immediately ran away, wishing the girl a great day and saying that he would not bother her again. The girl continued to sit in place like a statue. But then she squealed with happiness because she found a tamer with a mutated monster. Now no one would dare say that she chose weak newcomers. Tyler was shocked that such a huge flock of Yin Crows disappeared in just a minute. Frida said that the people they sent were veterans, and they were much stronger than he thought. And now the guy needs to think about how to pass the exam and move on to the iron rank. The girl warned that if Tyler sent her another distress signal, he would pay for all her hotel bills. The guy considered it another way to punish him, instead of taking away the right to qualify. Kevin gently put his arm around Tyler's shoulders and asked what they had been doing while he had been sleeping. The main character shouted at him to shut up, otherwise he would continue on foot. Tyler reported that last night, while Tyrant was running from the Crows, they moved from south to north for half an hour, and now they are near the northern rest area, about 60 kilometers from their camp. They missed a whole night, so they need to speed up as much as possible. While moving on the orc's shoulder, Kevin complained about how it felt like he was being baked alive. Tyler said that if he remembered correctly, there should be a supply point nearby. The boys quickly approached the supply point on the monster's shoulders. Kevin suggested going in there and taking a break, but the main character said that they needed to be careful. There might be other participants there, and for them, they were the same enemies as the monsters. Entering the room, Tyler didn't see anyone nearby, so they could rest here for a bit. Kevin immediately saw his favorite brand of chips and decided to grab some for the road. But the main character told him to only take the bare necessities because they had to follow the rules. But then Tyler noticed that someone had already been here before them. Kevin replied that this was the only one in the entire area, so it was no surprise that they weren't the first ones here. But for Tyler, it was very strange. All these things were not valuable but necessary. They would not just be left. So there was only one option. Something made them leave this place. Kevin asked not to scare him like that, because there are no traces of a bat or threat nearby. The tyrant began to growl sharply, warning of approaching danger. Tyler turned around and shouted that they needed to get out of there quickly. Sitting on the ogre, the guys saw a monster rapidly catching up with them underground. As Tyler thought, there was danger after all, and now it was chasing them. The boys shouted at Tyrant to be careful because this thing was very fast. The orc turned around so abruptly that the guys almost fell off him. And with all his might, he struck the ground with his fist, from which a huge worm appeared. The boys froze in shock, because their end would definitely come soon. Because it is a hell worm, a demonic monster that even the tyrant cannot cope with. But it is strange that it ended up on a safe path. Tyler immediately shot at the monster, but it didn't matter. The guy said that this monster was too fast, so they couldn't escape. Kevin just cried that they would be eaten, and he was still too young. Here the main character asked the tyrant to stop moving. Kevin shouted that if they didn't move, they would be eaten faster, but Tyler made him shut up and not move either. He assumed that since this monster had no eyes or ears, it tracked its targets using vibrations. Kevin couldn't help him because he hadn't even read the Book of Monsters. Tyler was right. If they didn't move, the worm would lose them. But if things continued like this, they would never pass the exam. Kevin thought he had a great idea. Taking out a piece of meat, he threw it to distract the monster. But Tyler had warned him not to move. When Kevin moved, the worm immediately noticed him. Unable to keep his balance, the boy fell off the tyrant and flew down. The blonde, lying on the sand and looking at the monster approaching him, asked for help. Worried about his friend, Tyler gave Tyrant a signal. The ogre immediately attacked the hellworm so that Kevin could get up and run away from there. Tyler sat on the shoulder, looming over the monster to get its attention. Kevin prayed for his friend to survive. Otherwise, he would not be able to repay him for everything. As Tyler ran away from the worm, he shouted for Tyrant to run in the same direction and threw him aside. On command, the ogre threw his master in the other direction. Tyler began to watch Tyrant running from the worm. The guy apologized to him for leaving him alone. He will have to use the organ as bait for the worm. The monster began to wrap itself around the tyrant's body in a flash, causing him pain. But Tyler, as a tamer, will never give up his monster so easily. The tyrant, safe and sound, found himself behind his master. Now that they had fooled the worm, they had to go and get the bun. Tyler called for Kevin, but he didn't respond. Having never found the bun, the main character decided to move on, hoping to meet him near the mountain. On their way to the east, they had to face many dangers. The safe route proposed by the association turned out to be not so safe. Then Tyler realized that this was too weird. But finally, they reached the Ridge of the Goddess. The guy told Bayou that Tiran's size was not suitable for mountaineering. Therefore, only the two of them will climb the mountain. Tyler connected himself and Bay with a thick rope, so the vampire climbed first, pulling his master along with him. If it weren't for the giant's endurance, he certainly wouldn't have survived this journey. Here, Bai accidentally stumbled and Tyler flew down. Noticing what was happening in time, Bai grabbed the rope with his hand. Thus, Tyler was saved, and he thought that he was finished. To prevent this from happening again, the vampire put the main character on his back, which made the guy blush. He asked Bai to let him go because he could climb on his own. Besides, he still has some male pride left. It was already too late, so Tyler suggested that Bai stop there. They still had some meat left, which Kolobok had prepared, for whom the guy was still worried. Tyler didn't want Kevin to die because he wanted to try more of his cooking. Turning to Bayou, the guy asked why he wasn't eating, but the vampire suddenly rushed down. He immediately returned back, holding a small, fluffy animal in his hands. Tyler recognized it as a snow beast. He had heard that they were very cute and harmless creatures. They were rare, so their price was equal to copper equipment. Turning to the animal, the guy assumed that it had come from far away because it was hungry or smelled meat. Taking pity on the snow beast, Tyler let him try some meat. The guy told Bayou not to worry because this little animal was harmless. Now it became clear to him why all the girls were delighted with them. But this fluffy lump eats a lot, of course, and when Tyler had no more food left, he sent the creature back home. But then the fluffy one pulled the guy by the pant leg. Bai was already preparing to attack, but the main character stopped him, saying that it looked like the animal wanted to take him somewhere. The snow beast nodded vigorously, agreeing with the guy. They had nothing else to do anyway, so the two of them followed the little animal. Fluffy jumped sharply onto the ice. Tyler shouted at him to be careful, otherwise he could get hurt. But instead of hitting the ice, the animal passed through it. Tyler was very surprised that the animal passed through the ice. After touching something, the guy assumed that it looked like a wall of ice, but it was an illusion, and there was something on the other side. The main character suggested that Bayou go in and see what was inside. After passing through the illusion, Tyler felt like he had stepped into a cold pool. Before the guy could enter, he was blinded by a bright light. Opening his eyes, he discovered that he was in some place unknown to him. When he wanted to turn to Bayou, he saw that he was not around. Someone's voice said that he couldn't get through. Only people with permission could enter because there was no place for monsters here. Seeing the little animal, Tyler asked if he said that, to which the fluffy one answered in the affirmative. The guy found it strange that his voice did not match his appearance. After these words, the little animal began to transform into something huge. He allowed Tyler to see his true form, and the boy immediately realized that it was Yeti standing in front of him. Yeti are ice attribute monsters. They are even stronger than superior level monsters. If he wants, he can easily kill the protagonist. Noticing that the boy was afraid of him, he hastened to calm him down, saying that he was not going to harm him. Yeti brought a man here to ask for help. Tyler didn't expect such a strong monster to ask him for help, but then he asked what kind of help was required from him. Having placed the boy on his paw, Yeti invited him to come with him. But first he wanted to tell a story, so he told Tyler to listen carefully. The guy replied that he had no other choice. Long ago, when the monster was still a child, he had an owner. She was the kindest creature in the whole world, and all his memories from that time are associated with her. Tyler couldn't imagine that he could have a mistress. The monster replied that she was not human, but he only realized this after he began to evolve. She loved people, loved to communicate with them, and often hid her identity to join them. And so she often left this mountain, although Yeti was lonely. But he could cope with it as long as she was happy. Later, she fell in love with a man, an ordinary mortal. She was ready to give everything for him, and from that day on, he never saw her again. Until one day, she finally returned to the snowy mountain. Yeti was so happy that he immediately rushed to his owner, until he saw that she would soon be gone. When that man found out that she was not human, he gathered a group of hunters to kill her. During the battle, he was wounded and almost died. To save her beloved, she tore out her own heart. The man survived, but all she could do was wait for her own death. After listening to the story, Tyler said that the beginning was so good and the end was sad, but he was interested in what happened next. Yeti replied that he listened to the last order of the mistress and then plunged her deep into this icy lake. And since then, this mountain has remained trapped in ice. Tyler didn't understand what Yeti wanted from him since his owner was dead. The monster replied that she said that one day a chosen one would come here who would be able to melt this lake, and then she would come back to life, and the ice on this mountain would melt. Tyler thought he was the chosen one, but Yeti said that there were 3 before him and they all failed. The guy assumed that he was just randomly bringing everyone who climbs this mountain. But the monster said that he only chooses people with good hearts. Several thousand years have passed and Tyler is only the 4th to enter here. The guy decided to find out what was required of him. Yeti replied that Tyler just needed to drop a drop of his blood. Whether he succeeded or not, he would be able to leave. If he failed, the monster would erase the boy's memory of his stay here. Since that was the case, the main character decided to try to help him. A girl betrayed by people, he hoped that he could help her. A drop of blood fell with a ringing sound onto the surface of the ice. Nothing happened, so they decided to wait. But even after an hour, nothing happened. The guy apologized for not being able to help Yeti. But then the ice began to crack and the lake began to melt, and all the plants returned to life after thousands of years. Tyler didn't realize he had that many nutrients in his blood. Yeti was very happy about the long-awaited return of his owner. The girl was so beautiful and divine that Tyler stared at her, blushing. She greeted the Ice King and thanked him for guarding her all this time. Yeti replied to his mistress that it was his duty, so there was no need for thanks. Looking at the chosen one, the girl thanked him, asking him to call her Missalina Lumi. Tyler replied, "You're welcome," and introduced himself in return. It may have been rude, but he decided to ask if she was a monster or not. Missalina replied that she was from the divine race. The guy guessed that it was similar to the monster that opened the 3,000 eyes of the abyss 800 years ago. The girl realized that the guy was talking about that self-proclaimed god. But even though he could be called strong, he was not from the divine race. He was only given a small part of the divine powers. Tyler didn't really believe this girl's stories. The goddess noticed this and said that the power of the gods was beyond the understanding of people. That's why Missalina suggested that the guy demonstrate his powers. Tyler had this strange feeling that his cracked wheel of life was now completely restored. The goddess said that the wheel of life had been bothering him for a long time. So as a reward, she healed him? The guy was shocked by the power of the gods. But that wasn't all she could give Tyler for saving her. She will give him something else as a reward. Then, the guy received a system notification about the detection of a divine presence, entering a state of ethereal perception. And the Great Devastation skill card has been upgraded to epic rank. Tyler was very happy with such a cool gift. Missalina said that the main character is very unusual for a mere mortal. As expected from a divine race, she sees right through him. No wonder Lucky was afraid to stick his head out. The girl suggested that Yeti send this gentleman back, but she promised that they would try to help Tyler in the future. But he replied that this was enough for him. After the main character leaves there, they will also leave this place. The guy asked where they were going. The goddess replied that they would return back to their world. The guy thought that in that case they would never see each other again. The girl asked Tyler to be careful on this mountain. If he decides to stay longer, he will meet a lot of monsters. But it was really strange. The hunter exam should be easier, but he had already encountered so many dangerous monsters. Missalina said that she felt the aura of a monster that had reached the rank of superiority, and it seemed like it had a skill that made the surrounding monsters hunt for it. So the guy needed to leave the mountain as soon as possible. Now Tyler finally understood why he encountered so many monsters along the way. The girl hoped that they would meet again, and the guy asked her to take care of herself. The barrier was still as cold as ever, and besides it was already morning. Seeing Bai, Tyler apologized to him for waiting there all night. He said that something happened to him on the other side, but it doesn't matter because they need to move on. He is full of strength and ready to continue on his way. After his life wheel was restored, the boy became stronger, and he was curious about how strong he would become after he reached the iron rank. Finally, the guys reached the top of the mountain and just in time for the end of the exam. Then they heard a strange sound that made them tense up, but a flock of geese came out from behind the hill towards them. Tyler was surprised that they lived here. Seeing Bai's tension, the protagonist said that they may look menacing, but they are so delicious that he could catch a couple. It was then that Tyler noticed that something was wrong with them. He was right. A second later they saw not geese in front of them, but real monsters. But they were too big, so Tyler shouted to Bayou that they needed to get out of there. The vampire pulled the owner by the rope, and the main character shot the monsters, but there were too many of them, so they needed to hide somewhere. Bai spotted a cave, into which he quickly dragged Tyler. Now all they had to do was wait here until they left. Then the guy noticed that something strange was happening with the monsters. They ran away in fear from the huge bluebird. Tyler said with fear that it was a black raven, and he was at the peak of his transition to the copper rank. But her appearance was to his advantage because at least these geese would leave and they would be able to move on. The raven landed right in front of the cave, looking murderously at the guys. Tyler realized that things were really bad for them. But he didn't understand why this bird was attacking them, because they hadn't done anything to it. Bai was about to rush into battle, but Tyler left him, saying that he was no match for the copper rank. The guy almost passed the exam, so he asked Bai not to interfere with him. He fired a bullet straight into the crow's chest, but it ricocheted off without hitting the bird. The guy was shocked that the bullet did not leave a single scratch on the raven's body. Could this really be the end for him? The raven continued to break through into the cave with all his might. Tyler told Bay that he had an idea and the vampire should wait for his signal. When the bird poked its head into the cave, the boy gave a signal. With Bay's help, the protagonist rushed straight to the raven. Even if this bird has a super strong body, there must still be vulnerable spots. Tyler aimed the gun directly at the raven's eye and fired. The raven slid and flew down. The guy used his last bullets on it. He killed a monster that was several times stronger than him, but he still didn't get a promotion card, but only got a monster card fragment. A black raven. The card was removed because the raven he killed was of a higher rank. The guy regretted that he had so few cards, otherwise he would have easily raised the rank of Bai and Tyrant to legendary. Lucky appeared out of nowhere and explained that promotion cards are given randomly. That time Tyler was just lucky with 2 cards. Besides, the strength of the summoned monsters depends on the owner. If the owner is weak, then the strength of the monsters will be limited, and it doesn't matter what rank they have. The guy got a doubling card, with the help of which for 1 hour for all killed monsters he will receive double the reward. Lucky said that if he finds suitable monsters, he can use this card to get a lot of fragments. But Tyler's bad luck still continued to surprise him. The guy was not in the mood to talk, so he asked his assistant to dump him. It's been a long time, so they need to hurry and get to the top as soon as possible. And after completing the exam, you will need to buy more bullets, especially armored ones. A bunch of obstacles took them too long, but they finally reached the top. Suddenly, someone said that this is why the weaklings should have given up from the very beginning. There was a guy standing near them, but neither Tyler nor Bai felt his presence. The guy said not to be so surprised because he is a participant just like everyone else. He immediately asked the question whether Tyler killed his black raven. The main character did not understand why he attacked them, since this guy is also a tamer. The boy replied that he had released the raven to find food for himself, and that they had simply been unlucky. But he won't forgive Tyler for killing his black raven just like that. Therefore, he will remember the main character's actions and take revenge. The boy had a copper rank blood eagle, which meant they were not in a very advantageous position, so they needed to come up with something urgently. Having climbed onto the raven, the stranger said that he was not going to take revenge right now. Tyler's vampire is very good, but he himself is still very weak. As he flew away, the boys shouted that they could talk when the main character came down from the mountain. The guy was furious that this kid was so arrogant. He even wanted to take him back and fight. But then Tyler realized he needed to figure out how to get down from here. Bay's wings are not adapted for flight, but they can be used for other purposes. Tyler always wanted to try this. He never thought that his dream would come true in another world. Now he understands why people have always wanted to learn to fly, because it is so fascinating. But it looked like Tyler's fun was over because they were approaching Area 7D121. The guys were met by Frida. She didn't think that the guy would arrive first. The girl congratulated him on passing the exam, and a little later, he will be able to register as a hunter. Tyler didn't think he would be the first to arrive. After all, that arrogant and haughty guy who looks like everyone owes him something should have arrived before him. The guy clarified that he also had a blood eagle. The girl understood that he meant Hunter Killian, but he doesn't count. Tyler wasn't quite sure whether he was taking the exam or not. Frida replied that he was a participant, just very different from the others. He was special, so he did not need to pass the exam. But he insisted on passing it like everyone else, so he could immediately become a copper hunter. The life crystals that Miss Alina gave the guy were sold for more than 3 million. Now he can call himself rich. Frida warned him that after the exam was over, registration would take some time, so Tyler would have to stay here for a couple of days. The guy decided that he would spend this time replenishing ammunition and farming monsters. At the gun shop, the salesman said that he doesn't sell bullets for the Dark Eagle. It's rare to meet owners of this weapon here, so he doesn't order them. But Tyler can go to Old Floral, even if he doesn't have them. It means that no one has them. 7D121 is much larger than Tyler's area, but no one sells rare gear. Looks like he'll have to find this floral. The guy spent so much time finding this shop, its owner must be quite unusual. Entering the store, the main character said that he had come to buy something. The old man told him to choose whatever he wanted, and then come up to him, and he would name the price. There are equipment from iron to gold grade. The price is high, but there are also many limited edition weapons. This old man is clearly not that simple. Tyler said he needed armor-piercing bullets for the Dark Eagle 17. He hoped that at least they would be here. Floral immediately asked how much he needed. The young man replied that he needed 3,000 regular and 300 armor-piercing bullets. The old man was surprised that the boy decided to buy so many bullets. The total amount is 165,000 credits, the old man summed up. Frohl said that if Tyler had enough money, he could even get the relic. The guy thanked the old man and said that if he needed anything, he would definitely come here. He never thought that he would meet such a person here. Then there was a loud sound. The old man explained that it was an alarm notification. It seemed like something had happened.